What are your thoughts on Mia? Mia is pretty cool. Like, not my favorite character ever. The training gimmick is like pretty overused in Fire Emblem. But it's nice to have a female Myrmidon that's not all based on sex appeal. So that's pretty cool. As a unit, she's pretty bad in Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, especially for a unit that's around the whole game. She really doesn't add too much. Radiant Dawn, she's a lot better though. Very easy to turn into a god combat unit. I like pairing her with Ike. Does Manx pay you to dual commentate? Nope, he does not. I don't make any money off YouTube. What characters would you like to see in Fire Emblem Heroes? Well, I don't play Heroes, and the reason why is in another video that I'm not going to get into unless someone asks me a question directly about that. But basically, I don't really care who they add to Heroes. They'll probably ruin every character at some point. Are there any units in Fire Emblem you know are bad, but love using anyway? I mean, I mostly like using good units, because if I'm using bad units, usually they really suck at one rounding. But sometimes I will raise a unit from the ground up. I have soloed FE4 with Arden before. I won't say it was fun, but it was very interesting. I like using Danvad, of course, because, you know, fun. I like Kurth Naga in FE10. One day I'm going to raise him up to be like level 40 dragon and just kick everything's ass with like a bunch of bonus experience. Would you ever see yourself doing another joke spotlight? I think the joke pretty much wrote itself, or rather, doing it from now just makes the first one worse. I feel I don't like following up on things that are like good. I don't want to make a bad sequel, basically. But if I have inspiration for new jokes and they fit into a spotlight, then maybe. Hey Mekkah, so you mentioned somewhere that you were a competitive Pokemon player. Could you tell some more details? Just curious. Might as well finish my internet history while I'm at it, right? It's always interesting. I don't know why people want to know so much about me. Anyway, I started playing online in 2003. I joined IGN's Pokemon board, and I found out there's a thing called RS bots, which were IRC-based bots that you could play Pokemon on. It was literally just text-based, no pictures. So I played on there for a little bit. I didn't know shit. I was really annoying when I was like, I don't know, 13, 14 or something. But that's when I joined the online community of competitive Pokemon. Then came Nap Battle and its Pretty Pictures, which is like a predecessor to Pokemon Online, later Showdown. I played competitively in Gen 3, pretty much all the way throughout. I got better and better as time went on. I never had the level of success that you would like associate with like good players nowadays. Like, I never won a really big tournament or anything. I made like the top 8 thing, or the top 16 in the Smogon Tour once, and I won like some small tournaments, but nothing big. I pretty much quit around the start of Gen 4. I could never really get into it. I didn't buy the games on cards, so that also gave me some distance. And ever since, I've been very lax about competitive Pokemon. I do watch Thunder Blunder every now and then. I think he makes fun content to watch or just put on in the background, so I know a little bit about like Sun and Moon and Auras competitively. I think it's a very interesting game to analyze. But I don't really play competitively. I do like playing ramp battles though. Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons? I have not. What age did you start playing Fire Emblem, and what was your first team? I pretty much answered the first part. But my first team, I know I used like every Lin mode character at first, for sure. So like Kent and Sane and Lin and all the lords, of course. I distinctly remember using Hawkeye, because he was really strong. I don't remember ever seeing him miss anything. His missing animation is just not in my memory. For my first playthrough, I probably used Pent. I don't remember if I let anyone die permanently in Eliwood or Hector mode though. But I probably didn't use Furia, because, you know, those are really hard to keep alive for new players. I don't remember much else about my first team. I just remember Hawkeye being really good. Who has it been more fun to commentate with, Don or Mangs, and why? This is an interesting question. It's very different. In both of the cases, I'm in the backseat. I am co-commentating. And with Don, we have a plan in mind, right? We know what we want to say, sort of. Usually we do like one take, where we had like a test take. I should talk in past tense because it's in the past, but we'll probably do it sometime again, I hope. But we had like a couple things in mind to say. I just watch the video first, and then we do a first test take, and then we kind of discuss about what we want to talk about and what we can leave off. Usually Don videos are pretty fast, so there's not a whole lot of time to talk about everything you like. unless it's like FE5 Chapter 14, where you have like a bunch of turns doing nothing. But basically, very strict, but very disciplined. It's very clear what you're going for. Whereas with Mangs, it's more like a free-for-all, right? Whatever happens, happens. It's live commentary. It's very different from post-commentary. And in a way, that gives me more creative liberty to do whatever I like. I do say, though, that Don, I have like this nostalgia for commentating with Don. I do miss the times that we were able to do that. So it's really a bit of both. I can't really answer this properly. But that's what it's been like to be with both, right? You basically know now. How much do you like bar tray? I need to know. I think FE7 bar tray is kind of a dumbification of FE6 bar tray. I'm sure you agree, Crash. You probably like FE6 bar tray better too. Can't really talk about Tearing Saga because I haven't played it. Might as well ask, I'm not familiar with your history on YouTube, so were you the one who helped Mangs get exposure and ironically overtake you in subs? No, dude. Even though my YouTube account predates Mangs', I think, Mangs obviously had a very different goal in mind about making videos than I did. I just made an account so I could make some videos, but I never really aimed to interact with the audience. I just put a couple of random things on there. Whereas Mangs, he went straight viewer hunting, so that's why he has subs and I don't, or at least he has more. Are there any ests worth building? I mean, I don't think there's as many ests as people will say there is. I think I pretty famously made a comment about Mangs being like, oh my god, this unit is an est when it unit joins like chapter 1. But generally an est by definition is not worth building because they join very late at a very low level, so there's no point. And if they join late but they're viable right away, I don't think they can be even called an est. I don't think of units like Zeus and Sarah from FE5 as est because they are okay from the get-go. They're not really weak. They just have some flaws. But generally, no, they're not really worth it. Unless you think it's fun, then you should do it. Then it's worth. If it's worth it to you, it's worth it basically. But in the context of like playing fast, no. Although I should say I have used Nino in a draft run once, in an LTC draft, with strange rules that allowed her to be viable, and I actually got her to warp rank by victory or death, and she saved turns there. So there are some exceptions. Do you have any Fire Emblem playthroughs coming up soon? I'd love to see you go through the process of making an LTC run. I have the FE8 run on hold right now because we have to re-record a bunch of chapters, but during that run we are planning, Ringo and me are planning to like explain our process. So I think that going through the process isn't a very interesting thing to watch because it's a matter of hours and hours of talking and planning and trying stuff out that doesn't work. It's probably not very interesting to watch. But we will probably have that with some explanation of the process at some point. Other than that, no plans for a new Let's Play per se, but I do have the multiple things at once thing. Next question is from Mangs himself. He asked something that someone else obviously already asked about the name Mekkah, so I'm not going to go and get into that. And unfortunately, I don't really know the origins of the name Don151, so you're going to have to ask him. Do you think 2017 Mangs has improved since the 2012 Mangs? In what aspect? In some ways he has, in some ways he hasn't. At least he brought someone on to advise him, but listening is not a matter altogether. Do you play Super Smash Bros. Melee? I don't play Super Smash Bros. I did it at a party a while ago, and I barely knew the controls, so I just tried to survive as long as I could by avoiding other people. That's my experience with Super Smash Bros. I'm terrible at it. Have you played Advance Wars? If not, would you consider it? I have played some Advance Wars, tried it out. I actually want to finish this one, add it to the long list, I guess, but this is actually something I want. I mean, the others are too, you know what I mean. I want to do everything. It's alright. I like Fire Emblem better, because, you know, characters, actual characters. It's good fun. It's good fun. If you had to, what character or unit would you expand into a fully fledged and frequently appearing archetype? I like the if you had to part of it, because I don't actually like archetypes too much. As I said, I want the Fire Emblem to experiment and be bold and try new stuff out. And if you keep reusing the same old ideas, like, I get that they had Christmas Cavaliers in most of the early games, but you don't have to do them for every game. I actually appreciate variations of it, like they did in Fates, trying to make them ninjas instead, but I think they could go even further. If there was one I want to repeat, just keep making Jagans. I guess that's already an archetype though. Is it Mekkah with 3 Ks or Mekkah with 2? What is it officially? I pick Mekkah with 2 Ks whenever I can, but on Reddit someone beat me to it, and on YouTube the same, so that's why it's with 3 Ks there. I have no association with the Ku Klux Klan, I swear. This video is not demonetized, as if it wasn't already. I probably said cigarette at some point. Favorite FE main protagonist and antagonist from a story perspective. Well, my favorite protagonist is Leaf, you already know that one. Antagonist, oh my god, let me think about this one. I think my favorites are like Garneth and Zephiel, probably. Can't really pick between those. Worst moment in Fire Emblem. For example, like 6 units dying in one enemy phase or being almost near the end of an excruciating chapter, only have to have an important unit die. I know the ones with mangs don't count. Okay, I had to think about this one for a little bit, because for a very long time I played Fire Emblem with save states, so the unexpected deaths didn't really happen a whole lot. And when it did, I would just load a save state, but I have done some Iron Man playthroughs. They were actually community playthroughs with other people. And I have one fond memory where I was doing okay in, I think it's 11B or 10B, the one where Klein joins on the alternate route in FE6, the one with Bartra route. And I was doing fine. Then Deke went up against the Killer Axe dude, or Killer Axe dude, yeah. And he had like 20 hit and 30 crit, and he just died like that. So not that unlikely in the grand scheme of things. But it was very impactful because I had to tell my friends that, yeah, Deke is no longer here. Sorry, guys. That was one of the worst moments, because I shouldn't have taken that risk to begin with. I should have found a way around it. There's also the part in that FE5 Iron Man where Asphalt died and Alwyn died in one chapter, but I mentioned that earlier. Which formats of competitive Pokemon do you like to play, and would you like to battle sometime? I've been retired of being competitive in Pokemon for a long time, and the metagames, even the old ones, have shifted a whole lot ever since I stopped playing. But I will definitely ramp battle you sometime if I'm doing another one of those showdown combat me things. Who is your favorite legendary Pokemon? Probably Rayquaza. Maybe Ho-Oh, maybe Mewtwo, but probably Rayquaza. Have you ever dabbed in public, or do you keep that to yourself? Okay, so the only time I ever dab is when I sneeze, and then I try to keep my hand to myself because I don't want to dab in public. Okay, what is your favorite legendary weapon from Fire Emblem? I like the turfing a whole lot because it saves a lot of tedium in the final chapter and the chapter before that. I like the Balmung because it makes Shannon a pre-promote, one of the best units in the game, and people who say Larcey is better, well, look at Shannon's stats with the Balmung, please, and then tell me again. I don't like a whole lot of other ones. The FE4 ones are pretty fun though. Least favorite Fire Emblem map or chapter? Ooh, this is a hard one. FE5 chapter 20 comes to mind. It's really boring, long, tedious, and pointless. A lot of FE7 chapters come to mind. Chapter 11, especially for Hector mode, is very pointless because for every playthrough you kind of want to do the same thing. This goes for a lot of chapter 1s, but in this one you only have 2 characters, but one of them is like unreliable and the other one is very frail. So that's one reason I don't really like it. Favorite area in a Pokemon game, and why is it your favorite? Oh, this goes way back. I like all of Kanto, really. Not to sound like an obvious Gen 1 or anything, but Kanto in general is really cool. If you want to be more specific about it, Goldenrod has always had a place in my heart. I know that's actually Johto. I meant the other one, Celadon City, because there's a lot to do, and there's happy music. Goldenrod music is also really good though. So those are my different favorite area themes, which was this guy's next question. But yeah, basically those. How would you balance or improve a Fire Emblem multiplayer mode if you were tasked with creating one? Okay, so this question was basically asked before, but I just thought of it. I think you need to incentivize going forward, incentivize the first strike, the first offensive strike. Maybe have like map objectives to rush towards that are like in the middle, maybe. like terrain that gives you enough of an advantage to negate your opponent's weapon triangle advantage on their phase. How old are you? I'm 28. 20 fucking 8. Feel free to skip this one if you feel it's too personal, as it hints at your place of living, but as a fellow Dutchman, I'm wondering whether you have a heart or a soft G. I have a heart. I can do the soft one though. Occasionally I do it, but usually it's when I'm mocking people from the south. I'm wondering how you rank different FE games. I'm guessing Jugdraw top, 3DS era on the bottom, but I'm curious towards the ranking in between the others. That's roughly correct. I also really like Tellius though, so that also goes like almost right on top. Like, and then Gaiden right below that probably, and then the GBA above Gaiden overall. FE7 can be below Gaiden if you want. Yes, I just said that. Out of all of them, which is your favorite map objective? Seize, kill boss, survive for X amount of turns. I like kill boss because it's quick, and I like finding quick strategies, but I think the most interesting one is Seize, because not only do you have to find a quick way to get to the boss, but you also have to get both a boss killer and your lord over there. And if your lord is really bad, right, like Roy, that presents an interesting challenge of where to put him. And better players than me have found really cool ways to make a frill unit like Roy or Leaf or even Lin or Eliwood survive, like clever positioning, making sure enemies block each other and stuff. That's pretty cool. Routes I really do not like, obviously. Surviving is pretty boring unless it's done well. I hear Conquest 10 does it well, but every other chapter seems to kind of fail at that. What would make archers or generals balanced has been done already. Could you make a general tier list of FE classes? The ones that are in most games you don't need to rank. Things like positions in here. This is too much work for a video like this, obviously. I think for the most part it's pretty obvious which classes are good and which ones are not. I do want to say people will usually judge by class a little bit too much. You should always look at the characters rather than the classes, because in the end there is no game where that says choose a general. You always have to pick between characters, and some of them happen to be generals. So I think looking at classes in a vacuum is kind of pointless. I always prefer to judge by character. Do you think someday you will make a Discord server of your own for people that are actually good at Fire Emblem, unlike the majority of Fort Mangs? A server like this exists, made by a person named Tiki, but I think a server like that kind of promotes elitism, whatever you want to call it, however you pronounce it. I don't think that's like very healthy. I like fragmenting fan bases. I don't want to fragment them further. I like keeping people a little bit condensed, keeping people together so that you don't get a massive echo chamber bubble where everyone agrees with each other. I think that's pretty boring. And I also don't want to maintain a Discord server. Not right now, at least. Like, Fort Mangs is like, it's like a fan server. I don't want to make a fan server for myself, obviously, because that feels like a very vain thing to do. If someone else wants to do it, go ahead, do it. I don't really care, but it's not something I'm going to set up myself. Okay, question from Moogle Boss, who is one of the other few people doing LTC Fire Emblem content. I think they did the FE9 0% run, kind of unfinished unfortunately, and some other stuff. What are your fondest memories playing competitive Pokemon? Well, the NU team that I referred to earlier was pretty fun. I like climbing a random battle ladder. Kind of fun memories from doing that, trying to plan that out. And what else? I remember making the top seed in the Smogon tour once. That was pretty cool. Like, I got enough points to make the playoffs. That was a pretty good memory. And really just chilling with people and making teams together was always fun. Why do you think Mangs was worth promoting, considering you criticize him so much? Well, he has like over 10 to 20 times my subs, so who is really promoting who? And even if you criticize someone, that doesn't mean that you can't interact with them. That seems pretty silly. I'd never really actively promoted Mangs in my channel. It's more like I was trying to challenge him with my shit posting and my parodies. I like making parodies too. I just think those are fun, and Mangs is very easy to parody. So if you're referring to my first call out of Mangs, like my imitation of him playing Fire Emblem, then that's just something I wanted to do because he's very easy to imitate. Opinion about sword fighters in Fire Emblem? They're usually worse than people with mounts or other weapons, but some of them can be okay depending on the context. For example, FE8 Joshua, he's pretty bad in the long term because the game becomes very movement heavy very quickly, but he does have his niche in taking out enemy sword fighters, since your other characters tend to be kind of poor at that, or at least the ones that are like, if you want Seth to do a whole lot of the map, but there's also another area of the map that you want to route, like say in chapter 9, then you'll probably want Joshua's help for that. So in general, sword fighters tend to have something to do at least, but for the most part they are worse than other characters. What other media do you enjoy outside of Fire Emblem, if any? So this is not the same as games, I guess, so I'll stay clear of games since that was already answered. I like the old Star Wars franchise, of course, for the original trilogy. I watched some Netflix, I've watched Suits, I've watched some Designated Survivor. I enjoy Better Off Ted is a really good comedy. It's not on Netflix. You're gonna have to find it elsewhere, but it's really good. Better Off Ted. There's this, I think it's Swedish series that's really funny. Or actually, no, it's actually Norwegian, I think. And which is why I brought it up to Mangs when I was on his stream. Okay, I found out what it was called. It's called Lilyhammer, and it's really funny. You should check it out. Where do you think FE games should cap out how good a unit is? For example, Seth and Sacred Stones. And where do you think they should draw the line for bad units like Mozu and Fates? Okay, for bad units, they should probably feel free to do whatever the hell they want. Because if a unit is too bad for me to use, it doesn't really affect me. I can just ditch them. And then if you want to use them for like a challenge or for memes, then you can just do that. As for how good a unit is, well, if you want your game to be broken, so be it. Feel free to make your Camillas and Seths and Sigurds and whatever. But I think like FE7 is like the upper thing of what a reasonable unit is before it becomes broken. And like FE7 Marcus is broken, don't get me wrong. But at least he's sort of worse later in the game. I don't know. I think they should just do whatever the hell they want. Just don't be surprised if people break the game. In a playthrough of any game, what are some possibly guilty pleasures you would do that you do at the would go against efficiency LTC investment? Okay, that was kind of incoherent, but I got the meaning, so it's fine. Sometimes I route maps, even though they're not routes, they're like Cs, because I just want to get all the XP, and I want to get all the treasure, even though it's like something that's not going to be of any use, or it's just money, even though I already have a bunch of money. I don't do this for every playthrough, but sometimes I play the game like that. I play casually a lot. Sometimes I use bad units. I try not to use too many at once, because at that point the game becomes pretty annoying, but I like using 1 or 2 bad units every now and then. So definitely those. Suppose the next Fire Emblem for the Switch comes with a PvP mode that implements chess timer and characters are given their average 2020 stats instead of being RNG'd. How interested would you be in playing it? What mechanics would you not want to see in this game mode? Since this is a bit of an elaboration on the PvP question, I guess I'll answer this. I would not like to see long-range magic tomes ballistas. That seems kind of annoying. I'm not sure about Fog of War. I'm not too experienced in player versus player to say anything about that. Chess timer is a good idea in general. I like give people time to think, as long as it's like penalizes them somehow. You might want to get an advantage by saving time for later on in the game when your decisions are more important. Average 2020 stats, I think, is an interesting mode to go about. I would also like the option for just max stats, or maybe even level 10, level 20, level 20/10. There might be different metagames for that. 2020 is kind of growth-based, whereas, say, level 10 is more basis-based, and I think that's an interesting shift. It lets more different characters be viable. I still think PvP in Fire Emblem is fundamentally flawed due to the weapon triangle and how strong player phase is versus enemy phase, basically. So that would need to be worked on. And again, I see more merit to co-op Fire Emblem than anything else, anything PvP based. Kirby Master, what's it like to watch a speedrun and see all these random units die and lose turns to save time? It's glorious. it's almost funnier when there's units dying, because it makes it more real, Fire Emblem was meant to be played with permadeath. So it's definitely funny to see like it sucks if it's a unit I really like FE6 Marcus, he dies in the speedrun, and that really sucks, but like Makalov dying or something, or like Astrid, who cares? It's just funny. So yeah. Has Fire Emblem taught you anything useful in real life? If so, what did it teach you? Fire Emblem itself doesn't really teach me a whole lot, especially when I use save states. But it has made me think a lot and teach myself a lot about making videos, editing videos, because of the YouTube channel I started because of Fire Emblem. So it like indirectly taught me a lot about video editing and quality and whatnot. As you can see, I've improved a little bit over the years. At least I'd like to think so. So nothing directly, but video editing is definitely useful. Doesn't mean I can't be lazy still though. What's the worst RNG screw that you had? Well, I can't think of too many off the top of my head, and like the saves are long gone, but I too have experienced numerous fast units with very low strength getting below average strength, and as a result they can't hurt anything. Like, I can't remember exactly who it was, but I'm sure it's like Lin or Guy or God knows who else has bad strength for those kind of units. I've definitely had my share of those. Farina definitely has had low strength for me. That kind of sucks. Oh, also the 1% crit. I've seen that. It's not pretty. What do you think about Urk? People will often like, hey dude, don't use Urk, Pent is much better, but they either forget or don't care that Urk helps you for many more chapters before Pent does, and I think that's worth something. And even if you want to use Pent, there's no reason to not use Urk as well, unless you have very few unit slots to work with. Hector Hard Mode is pretty stingy on unit slots, but generally there is enough space for both Urk and Pent in the chapters where it matters. And I think it's decent. It's just kind of annoying to use him sometimes, because if you don't play Limb Mode, he joins at level 1, and that makes him kind of underleveled. You need to put a fair bit of XP into him. And generally when I play FE7, I'm pretty lazy, so I just take Kanas instead, because he can promote pretty quickly, and start building a staff rank. So I think Urk is worse than Kanas, arguably worse than Lucius, because he also has staff rank superiority, but Lucius also joins even later than Urk. So I don't know. People used to compare these units as if you can only use one, but you should really use multiple if you like them all. I think Urk is a decent unit. What Fire Emblem games have I played? I guess I haven't said this outright. Okay, so I've played but not finished FE1. I finished Gaiden. I finished FE3 Book 2, not Book 1. I finished FE4, obviously, FE5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, but not on Lunatic Plus or whatever. Not even on Lunatic, actually. And then I have finished FE13, of course, Awakening. Not because I bought it, but because I borrowed it off of someone. I didn't play Fates, didn't play Echoes, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Like, I've never played FE Warriors. I've never played FE Heroes. So yeah, that's it. Can you play Pokemon Conquest on your channel, please? It's an RPG like Fire Emblem, but with Pokemon, and it's great. I've heard good stories about it. I might play it. What about Fire Emblem Heroes would you fix to make it more free-to-play friendly other than the gacha system like stamina? Or what would you want to change in the game to make it playable by your standards? I kind of talked about this, of course, already, but not in this, so I might as well talk. My biggest problem really is the gambling aspect and the whole dopamine thing, where it tries to get you addicted. So even though the game is free, it tries its best to get money from you and try to wrestle control away from you. I think everyone deserves the right to have control over their own actions, and these games try to take that away. So what I really want is for the game to basically let you buy characters for money, just straight up. I want Hector, so I'll pay $5 for Hector, but since Hector's such a popular character, he might be more popular than, say, Tiltu, so you can get Tiltu for $3. Something like that I would be perfectly okay with. I think that's probably fine. People can still get addicted, but at least there's no loot box bullshit shenanigans going on. That's all I want, really. And I can see why they didn't, because they want to make more money, and obviously gacha loot boxes make more money, but this is how I would prefer it to be. Also, no in-game currency bullshit. You don't need that. That just hides the fact that you're spending real money, and that's being dishonest. You mentioned in one episode of Mangs' Shadow Dragon LP that you enjoy when there is a combination of gameplay and story. Besides FE4 and 5, are there any other games that you think pull this off well in the franchise? In some parts, yeah. There's this part in FE10, I think it's like 1-3, where you're running away from a prison with like Soth and Nolan and Leonardo, and even like the earlier parts of part 1, and even some of the later ones. I think that captures the feel pretty well. It's almost reminiscent of FE5. There's even a prison break chapter, although you're breaking other people out. I think those were pretty cool. So yeah. But it's only parts of it. Like some other parts of it, they're just very tedious. FE9 does manage it sometimes, like the early game again. There's a part where you're trying to escape after going over a bridge while hiding in a forest. That captures the feeling of the guerrilla mercenaries at that point pretty well. Yeah. FE8 has this moment where you had to save Erica from getting overrun by Falter's army of Wyvern Knights with the help of Saleh and Ines. That was also a pretty good example of that. So there are some moments, but no other game does it as well as FE4 and FE5 as a whole. And last question, what do you think of the following genres of music? Funk, jazz, rock, metal, hip-hop, lo-fi. Funk I don't know too much about. I do like funkadelic. That's pretty chill. If that's even a word nowadays. There's only one way to describe it really. It's just goofy and chill. So I guess that's 2 words. Jazz is relaxing, so I listen to it very occasionally, but I have to remember to do it. Rock, probably my favorite genre. My favorite part is progressive rock. Favorite bands are probably like Pink Floyd and Porcupine Tree, as well as Pineapple Thief. Metal, all of that comes to mind right now, and I'm sure it's due to the name, is Metallica, which I am a big fan of. Hip-hop, not too big on, although sometimes I do listen to it. There's a Dutch band that's pretty good at it. And lo-fi, don't know anything about. So we're just short of 2 hours of questions, and I think I'm going to call it here. So thank you so much for asking all these questions. If I didn't get to yours, it's either because I answered it before, or I just felt like skipping it because I had to cut some questions out to make it even somewhat bearable. But yeah, thank you so much for all the attention. Thanks for subbing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll see you guys around. Bye.